everybody, and welcome back to another max velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be going over a fairly rare storm that we've never really seen before that is going to bring a dual threat of flooding to the west coast and then eventually severe weather to the southern tier of the United States. I'll give you a latest breakdown on both of those situations and more in this forecast, but let's first begin with what's happening out across the United States today, beginning with all of the red that you see on the left side of your screen, which begins with this one atmospheric river, otherwise known as a bit of a trough here, that's just west of California, that is bringing a load of rain right now to California, as well as even into western Nevada and even into southern Oregon. There's been a lot of rainfall in this region, bringing extreme flooding, mudslides, power outages, you name it. It's bringing a bunch of threats. And in addition to that, the Sierra Nevada is seeing a load of snowfall. Some areas could see upwards of 100 inches before the end of this week. So it is a very active pattern over on the west coast. For the remaining eastern half of the United States, there's hardly any clouds in the sky. It looks beautiful across the rest of the country. This will not last much longer though. As this trough begins to move closer to the Rocky Mountains, this will begin to bring the potential for some severe weather and much more as we head into later this week. Overall watches and warnings from the National Weather Service really include flash flood warnings, high wind warnings as well for Western California and those orange boxes as well as the green boxes. Winter storm warnings in effect for the Sierra Nevada. As I mentioned before, there is a lot of snow falling there. Upwards of 100 inches of snow is expected by the end of this week in some areas. There's also a possibility for a low-end chance for severe weather today and tomorrow. That marginal threat extends from almost about Eureka back through areas just south there of San Francisco. Isolated damaging winds and an isolated brief or weak tornado are not impossible today. Same thing with tomorrow. The threat will shift slightly further to the south, more south of San Francisco and San Jose. A possibility for an isolated tornado or isolated damaging winds exists there. And a big concern is flash flooding. If you're in the red shaded area, that is the greatest potential for some flash flooding today. Rivers are rising pretty quickly as well, so there's a lot of danger right now out there, and it's really wet on the roadways too. So if you're driving out there, make sure you take it slow on the roadways, but stay home if at all possible. Overall though, red shaded area is your greatest chance for flash flooding. Going into tomorrow, it's going to really shift down to the south towards Los Angeles. So if you're in Los Angeles, flooding threat will increase as we head into the daytime tomorrow. But beginning with this afternoon, there will be a lot of rain out there for those anywhere east of San Francisco, but rain will really start to wind down throughout the afternoon and evening hours. It's primarily going to shift off to the east. Any remaining activity should be for the most part isolated or widely scattered. Eventually going into the overnight hours tonight is when we'll have another band of moderate to heavy rain enter from the west coast there in the Pacific Ocean. This rain will start to move inland towards areas like San Francisco, the Bay Area, back through Eureka. Eventually going into the overnight hours, more rain spreads across the state, and we'll see some snow as well back into the Sierra Nevada. Eventually going into the morning hours Tuesday, rain will continue. A lot of this though will be scattered, maybe even numerous in some locations, and eventually going into the afternoon and evening the following day, rain will continue, but more in a scattered to isolated amount before we have another chance of rain arriving Wednesday. This will just continue throughout the next several days. Again, there's really no end in sight in terms of what we're seeing out there from the rain here across California. Rainfall totals for the next 48 hours. This does not include what we've already seen. Several areas, especially near the Bay Area, will see somewhere between 2 to 4 inches of rain. Redding back over closer to the mountains as well, going to be somewhere between about 2 to 7 inches of rain. Back through the anywhere in the Sierra Nevada is going to be seeing a lot of rain if you don't already see snow. So there'll be at least a lot of snow there in the Sierra Nevada. Lower elevations will still see a lot of rainfall, causing very hazardous conditions out there over the next several days. Back through areas as well into Southern California, we'll see a lot of rain additionally. Back near Los Angeles, there could be some locations seeing upwards of 2 to 4 inches. However, I would not rule out some areas getting upwards of 6 to possibly as high as 10 inches of rain by the upcoming 48 hours. Again, this is only through Tuesday night, so you can just get a general picture here. There's going to be a lot of rainfall here over the next 48 hours, and also closer to areas near Oxnard, just north of there, could see upwards of 10 inches of rain in a couple of isolated locations. Over the next 7 days, obviously a lot of this is going to come in the next 48 hours, but it doesn't end there. We're going to see more rain going into this following, really all the way through the end of the week into early next week. So the current forecast is going to be somewhere between 3 to 5 inches across the entire west coast of California, with some isolated locations getting as high as 10 inches of rain. Now we're transitioning to a completely different story, and that is the severe weather potential heading into later this week. This will be associated with the trough that is already bringing rain to California, but there is a marginal threat for severe weather over a pretty large region. I would not rule out a slight risk of severe weather by tomorrow's outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, but this threat goes from northeast Texas all the way back through western Kentucky. All modes of severe weather will be possible, including damaging winds, large hail, and a possibility for a couple of tornadoes. Instability, which is basically what fuels thunderstorms, is really going to actually be pretty good for severe weather activity going into late Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Instability values upwards of 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram, really in a good realm there for severe weather. The only problem is we don't have every ingredient available. Some of those include things like the low-level jet, mid-level rotation, and other things like that are not as strong as what they have in the past, meaning severe weather will be a bit more isolated, but we're still expecting some severe weather. Storms are also expected to be severe weather here across the southern plains going into late Wednesday night into Thursday. Beginning with Wednesday afternoon is when that trough will start to deepen a little bit back over near Oklahoma and Kansas. This will bring a little bit of rain, maybe a little wintry mix as well, and some snow back over into Kansas. It doesn't look like a winter storm by any means, but there might be at least some snowfall up there. By late Wednesday night and Thursday morning is when storms will fire up, primarily in northeast Texas back through western Arkansas. These are the ones that could very well be severe. Eventually going into late Wednesday night into the overnight hours into Thursday morning, storms will shift off to the east into areas like Louisiana, back through the lower Mississippi Valley, going all the way back up even through areas like Illinois and Indiana. And eventually heading into Thursday is when we actually do have a slight risk for severe weather already issued by the Storm Prediction Center. This does include areas in Alabama and northern Georgia, does include Atlanta, by the way, and it goes all the way back through areas near Birmingham. So beginning with the overnight hours Wednesday into Thursday morning is when the storms will be back through the lower Mississippi Valley. Eventually going into the later half of Thursday morning, storms will arrive into areas like Tennessee, back through Alabama, extends all the way back down through eastern Louisiana. Eventually going to the afternoon and later afternoon hours is when the most of the severe weather will be centered over that slight risk of severe weather. So our greatest concern right now will likely be during the afternoon hours. This does not seem to be much of an overnight severe weather threat. Luckily, we do not need more nocturnal tornadoes or anything like that. So good news there, but going into late portions of Thursday, so just after sunset, is when storm activity will shift into Florida, back through the Carolinas, but most of those storms are not expected to be severe by then. Make sure to like the button down below, subscribe if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.